morning.
Morning again. Sometime around noontime, I may have to jump out because the air conditioner people are coming.
Oh yes, you're getting a new one.
We got a new one, and they put it in, and but there's been some, and it had one of those digital thermostats, and somehow there were problems with the digital thermostats and the float switches and all of that business. Anyway, but everything's working nicely, and we're hoping it's going to save us a great deal of money.
While you were going through the replacement of your air conditioner for your home, ours went out in our #1 car.
Whoop.
And so at the beginning of the month, when we took our first road trip, it gave out in the middle of that. We went to see the tulips in Pella, Iowa. So I'm a little better together than I was for the last class. I didn't have all the pieces of all the instructions that I needed.
But it was okay.
I think I have it together a little better this semester, this hour.
I'm gonna post a blog about my bird watching here in my backyard.
Oh, good.
Outside my window, and I've been taking. I sit here with my camera at the ready. I have it right here with the big lens.
I will look forward to that. I so enjoy your blog.
And I've got right now at this moment I've got a male cardinal out there on the ground, and
they're so showy.
They are, and there's his mate. She just joined him. They're on the fence. Oh, they're so pretty. I just love cardinals.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Did I hear cardinals are paying Joe a visit?
Yeah.
They are.
Joe's life is beginning to be driven by his blog now, as is mine.
I love it.
He's taking pictures for his blog post on bird watching, so I'm looking forward to that.
So how did your 9:30 meeting go?
Well, I was a little rattled because I didn't have all the requisite pieces in place, but we got it to work.
Hang on, that might.
And so some days people talk more easily than other days.
And did you have a full group?
We had quite a few.
We had 6 at the max.
Very nice.
There were people having trouble with their audio, though. So it's, that's always the determining factor that we'd like to have go away. But as I reflect back on the experience for VLS, we have so many fewer techie glitches with our current set of tools.
Yeah.
This is a good platform.
Yes, I think so too.
It seems very stable, other than the occasional Macintosh issues, and I probably shouldn't utter that because it will no doubt jinx the whole thing.
So far it's all going up. It seems to be copacetic. And we have
Constantine, good evening.
Oh.
Hello. How are you this evening?
We can hear you, but we can't yet see you.
And I hear you too. I'm single pupil in our class today.
You may get a private lesson.
There's no extra charge for that.
Notice that this is not a bad thing, as you and I discovered one other day. But it means you get lots of talking practice.
And Professor Lero has had some bird visitors, so he's even taking photos while we meet.
I'm trying to get. I've got cardinals and blue jays right now. Okay, so I'm done.
Do you use a special food to attract them, or?
No, I use the HEB brand wild bird seed.
Yeah. I use the Lowe's brand, and it seems to do pretty well.
They're not fussy.
We have to separate the squirrels from the birds, or the squirrels will eat all of the food. But we now have them separate. So, Joe, you need a pillow to put on top of your...
My telephone, I'll be attentive to that. It's loud, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so this is our next to last class, and we have 2 subjects to talk about today. The first one is this video clip, which is a favorite of both Professor Smith and mine, of Jon Stewart talking about this encounter of President Obama and the then President Medvedev. I think he was still president then.
Yes.
And so, Konstantin, did you get an opportunity to watch this clip?
Yes, I have watched this clip, but they speak too fast for me.
Yes, sometimes they speak too fast for me too. But I have the advantage in that I know a lot of the references that he makes. So what were you able to get the gist, the general idea of what this clip is about?
This clip is about how President Obama some years ago said that he will be flexible when he re-elected at second time, in second score. And President Medvedev said that he transmits this information to Vladimir.
Yes.
What Russian sentence do you think he used to translate that phrase, Konstantin? I transmit this information to Vladimir.
Я передам эту информацию Владимиру.
Yes. Perfect.
Take your word for it.
Передать, Jan, literally is the calc of transmit. Pira as a prefix is trans, and dat is mittere, to give, in the Latinate languages, and Vladimir in Russian is in the dative case. Literally, I will give this information in the accusative to Vladimir in the dative. So it's perfect Russian.
Well, I would have expected as much. and I have another file that I'd like to, a picture that I took of the clip. If I can get it up, I will do that. Share file.
And this event took place last spring at at a meeting in Seoul, South Korea.
It was last spring?
Actually, just last spring, early, so a year and a half ago, maybe, a year and 3 months. And it's what we frequently call, and what Jon Stewart called, a hot mic. The idea that his microphone was on, and everybody could hear what he said, although obviously he was speaking some informatia that was private. And the whole world heard.
And he goes on to, Stewart goes on to say, this is a sentence that should only be spoken into a shoe phone. And I love this because it's a reference to an old spy TV comedy called Get Smart.
From the 1960s.
Get Smart.
Right?
Get Smart.
Get Smart.
Actually, I think it was Get Smart with 2 T's.
Was it with 2 T's? It's Maxwell Smart. Is it 2 T's?
Maxwell Smart. Well, I don't know.
Well, it's a very broad comedy. And hello, Irina.
Hi.
We're happy to see you. We are beginning to talk about the Jon Stewart trip.
I see.
Actually, just 1 T.
Okay. So
1 T?
1 T.
Maxwell Smart
Played by Don Adams.
was a stand-up of spy movies. And so he had all of these gadgets to help him be a spy. And one of them was a phone with a shoe in it.
A shoe with a phone in it.
Oh, yes, sorry. A shoe phone. And
See how carefully he hid it from you?
Yeah.
That was good.
Sorry, it was a comedy about Russian spies? Or
Actually about American spies who were sort of bumbling, sort of foolish. But there was an enemy, that they were always fighting against, and they didn't call the enemy the Russians. They called them, what was it, Spectre, right?
Spectre.
And so there was an enemy, sort of a pseudo-enemy, a fake enemy that looked and sounded very Russian, so the spies on the other side, this was a comedy show. But they didn't call them the Russians, they called them Spectre, because in this time period, of course, it was the Cold War.
And
I remind the comedy movie about the spies, also what the Chinese movie from Beijing with Love.
Yes.
Someone watched that?
I
So the shoe was like a shaver in this movie.
Ah, it was like a razor.
in our comedies, old comedies, the spies used cigarette box as a phone.
Ah, excellent.
That's good too. I don't know why we didn't think of that.
It was very funny when they speak with this phone under the water.
Oh.
Underwater.
Well,
and this clip, Jon Stewart he asked a very interesting question. He said, maybe part of the reason that Americans and Russians don't communicate very well is that Russian sounds so sinister, he said. Right? And he keeps trying to mock Medvedev's accent. I will transmit this information to Vladimir. And so he posits a very funny theory that because Russian sounds so sinister, maybe that's why we think Russians are sinister. What do you think of that, Irena?
What mean the word sinister?
Sinister, like evil or wicked.
Wicked. Yeah, I like wicked.
Wicked.
Oh.
You know, in American English, some accents are considered prestigious, like British English to an American ear is highbrow. French sounds elegant. German sounds rough and guttural, and Russian. Oh, those Russians.
And very curt, right? They hear the Russian intonation, which falls at the end of the sentence.
Well, about the accent, I agree, because when I lived in Israel and I heard the Russians who just came to Israel and they tried to talk in Hebrew, also with the horrible Russian accent, and it really sounds wicked.
Wicked.
Yeah.
Sometimes people keep their accents because they think it's chic. And back in Nixon's day, the Secretary of State was Henry Kissinger, and he had probably an Austrian accent. And I know that he was fluent. He was extremely articulate in English, very fluent in English. But he always had this strong accent in English. However, he was also fluent in French, and when he spoke French, he had no accent. The French are never amused by people who speak French with an accent. Oh yes, Boris Karloff.
I'm always amused by Boris Karloff. So he was an actor in American films. I think he was American, and he was very famous for his very accented English, and you were led to believe that perhaps he was Russian, and there wasn't a drop of Russian blood in him. It was a stage act, and he was very famous for having that foreign accent. And you saw the name Boris, and thought he must be Russian by descent, but he was not.
So the name of this clip, did anyone notice what it was?
No.
Borscht Whisperer.
Russian borscht. Whisper about Russian borscht. The borscht whisper, maybe.
Yeah.
That was it. The Borscht Whisperer.
That's exactly right. And this is a complicated reference.
Complicated, sorry.
Reference. For two reasons. The first one is Something Something Whisperer. There was a movie called the horse whisperer. And a famous TV show called The Ghost Whisperer.
By Borscht Whisper.
The Borscht Whisperer. So this is the source of one illusion. A whisperer is someone who's able to communicate with someone who's difficult to reach. So the horse whisperer was about a cowboy who was very good at training horses, and he was very gentle with them. The ghost whisperer was a young woman who could talk with the dead and help them with their unfinished business with the living. So then you might say, what is the Borscht Whisperer? You have to know what this clip is about. Who eats borscht? That's the first question. Who is it that eats borscht?
Russians eat borscht.
Yeah.
Why
Russians.
Borscht? There is no T in the end of this word.
Well, in Russian there's not, but we have a problem in transliterating it into English.
Yeah.
So Professor Marston, borscht is spelled in English B-O-R-S-C-H-T. There are several variations, but those last four consonants in English in Russian are represented by one letter.
And it's a palatalized consonant too.
It's a palatalized
it's an SH that's palatalized, basically. Which doesn't exist in the English phonemic lexicon.
Not really. But that's an interesting linguistic note. Okay, so a Russian then.
And in this name of this clip, I don't know how to understand it. Maybe the person who speaks with borscht?
Yes, so the one who speaks with the
and
borscht eater.
Who is borscht eater?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
he's speaking. He's whispering in the ear of the Russian.
Yeah.
And then it makes
it's not uncommon to refer to a people by some of the food we eat, and often disparagingly.
Disparaging?
In a negative way. For example, we refer to the French as frogs, referring to the fact that they eat frogs' legs, or Japanese refer to Koreans as garlic eaters, and Belarusians refer to Russians as bulbash, potato eaters. Professor Smith, do you have one? Frogs?
The Germans as krauts.
Germans as krauts. Oh, wonderful. Germans as krauts.
What krauts?
Sauerkraut.
Sauerkraut.
The boiled cabbage, boiled pickled.
Wurst eaters.
Wurst eaters, yeah.
Sauerkraut is very good.
Oh, I agree.
For them.
It is very healthy for them.
Anyway, so we refer, in this case, he's referring to the Russians as borscht. the Borscht Whispers.
And many of Jon Stewart's titles have little plays on other titles.
And this one has another play. Jon Stewart is a comedian in a long line of Jewish comedians that are called that
Yes.
are famous. Now you've made me self-conscious, and I can't spell borscht at all. For performing in the Borscht Belt.
The Borscht Belt, yes.
Which and so this means that, especially in the middle of the 20th century, there were a lot of Jewish comedians that got their start in the Borscht Belt, which was in the Catskill Mountains of New York. And it was the Catskills were a popular vacation site. And so when you hear someone say Borscht Belt, those words together mean a place where it was a vacation place with a lot of good comedians. Is that fair to say?
Konstantin or Irena, who would be a well-known comedian in Russia today? What would be some names of people who are comedians in Russia today?
Well, when we talked about the Borscht Belt, it means that a lot of time Americans laughing on the Russians, how I understood. Yeah. So in this way here we also have one, of course, it's Mikhail Zadornov, who once was all the time laughing on Americans.
Yeah. And is he a TV comedian? Where does he appear?
Yes, he's TV comedian, and he still has his own shows. And his performance is just, I can't say it's not a stand-up, but he's telling some stories, and some truly stories from the life, which he saw in America or in other parts of the world, and he just tells these stories, and it sounds very fun. It's like he's laughing on our cultural difference.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always a very rich topic, right?
Yeah.
So I'll have to go and see what Mr. Zadornov is saying about the Americans.
His favorite phrase is all Americans are stupid. Yeah.
So he's very diplomatic, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and also after this story, when he started his Dutch performance, I don't know, maybe it was just gossip, but they say that they closed his visa to America.
They took away his visa. Maybe we aren't very thick-skinned, right? We're not very open to folks criticizing us.
Yes, but you're still laughing on Russians.
Yeah. Konstantin, who would be another comedian in Russia? A very famous comedian?
I don't know. Today there are no good comedians. I think that 20 years ago there was the same Zadornov, Zhvanetsky. I don't remember, but there was a comedian.
I think also the one famous comedian is also Gennady Khazanov. He was strong in one time.
He was not exactly. I think he was not comedian. He was only actor.
No, he also has his shows and his performance before that he became an actor.
When he tried to write something, I think that it was very stupid. And he read us Zadornov or Zvanetsky things, it was very funny. But when he wrote himself, I don't like it, and nobody likes it. Maybe maybe Irena, I don't know. But I think that she didn't различать. That she didn't.
Yeah, I didn't feel the difference when he wrote and when he's not.
Yes.
Differentiate, yeah.
Because the most of his things was by Zvanetsky.
Okay, but he was a performer, so it's also important.
Yes, he was only an actor. And today he don't seem very good.
And he's old already.
Of course.
And humor, even within a culture, is a very personal thing. Maybe you will like a comedian, but someone else will not. So we like Jon Stewart. My wife and I watch Jon Stewart, but my daughter doesn't think he's very funny. So it's sometimes comedians are, we would say, an acquired taste.
The matter is, we have too many comedians in our TV. It's a very good profession because they get good wages for it.
Ah.
And when we hear the jokes every day, every hour, the joke becomes a stupidly thing.
I have an idea.
It's impossible to joke every day.
I have an idea. I have an idea that we should produce a new television show, a comedy, and one of the characters would be a Moscow metro driver. And another character would be a woman who was an Israeli soldier. Can you imagine?
Yeah, what a great show!
What a great show! What a great show! Who would believe characters like this?
And a third person might be, she said immodestly, the dumb American who didn't get it. I think
some years ago we have a show on TV when our politician was performed as metro drivers, as soldiers, as I don't remember who else. And maybe you I don't куклы.
Puppets.
Puppets. Yes.
Puppets.
And it was something like Professor Lira offering.
Yes. The French have a series of there's a very popular TV show that is all puppets, and it's political satire, and it's very popular.
Mm-hmm.
That was my next question. How do you make fun of politicians in Russia? You can tell jokes, right, about politicians? What other kinds of satire exist in Russia? Can you tell a joke about Vladimir Putin on TV?
On TV, yes, and we had that. Where we have the show, it's called Comedy Club, and once we have the one character, he is how to say? He looks very close, like very same like Vladimir Putin, and he is how to say? Parodiral.
Parody.
Yeah, he's parody Vladimir Putin, and was seems like very same, but it just was with a lot of jokes.
So he rides a horse with his shirt off, and he flies an airplane, and he drives.
No, it was not about this, but
because in the West we see these pictures of Putin, and we think it's very different from our leaders, right?
yeah.
So how would he parody Putin? What would he do?
He talked like a Putin, and it was very same. But he told some fairy tales, the Russian fairy tales, but with the politician meaning.
Ah, so double meaning.
Yes, yes.
Double entendre.
So it was really funny.
And is this an ongoing show? Is it still on the air?
Yes, but he is already not.
Uh-oh, where is he?
I don't know actually where is he. I saw him just twice, I think, in the role of the Vladimir Putin, and after I didn't saw him again.
So maybe he has disappeared.
Maybe.
Now see, that's sinister, right? There we go.
Yes, that's sinister.
But also our comedy actors love to tell jokes about other politicians, of our countries like Ukraine, Belarus. They're all the time doing this.
There was an old Cold War joke. Ronald Reagan used to tell this joke, and he said, Ronald Reagan said to Khrushchev, he said, Mr. General Secretary, in my country, people can say Reagan is a bum, and he should be kicked out of office. And Khrushchev said, it's the same in my country. People can say Reagan is a bum. He should be kicked out of office.
Good joke, but President Reagan discussed all problem with President Gorbachev. Khrushchev was died in 1972.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, thank you for that correction.
When Reagan was actor in Hollywood. Or maybe he was beginning in politics, in political.
So I want to go back to this clip one more time, because there is a kind of linguistic basis for this whole clip that Jon Stewart wanted to make, I think. And that was the difference in the languages. He said maybe it's just the syntax and the tone that have made us feel like enemies for so long. And so then we come back to, I transmit this information to Vladimir. We already talked about this a little bit, but this is not the way that, even under these circumstances, no American native speaker would say this. This will convey the idea that I think that Medvedev is trying to convey. How could you make that more American? I transmit this information to Vladimir.
It was a question?
It's a question, yes. How would you rephrase that so it would be more American?
Idiomatic.
This is a good Russian translation.
Yeah, good Russian English.
Передам информацию Владимиру. it's a perfect translation. But
subjective verb, an object, and an indirect object.
we would not say that in English, colloquial English. What do you think? Someone want to try? What do you say? Irena, how about you?
I have no idea.
Okay. How about this? How about, I will tell Vladimir.
It's too simple, no?
Yeah.
Or even, I'll tell Vlad.
I'll tell
I'm so blind.
But that's the same level of language that an American would be comfortable with in this thing. He's Vlad's associate. I don't know if he calls him Vlad or not, but he might. And so that would be the very formal. To us, this is very formal. And Jon Stewart in this clip goes on to point out some other examples, and to us, it's very funny. And he continues with this pastiche, making fun of he uses a real gravelly voice to do the Russians. But here are two examples. He goes, "Have a nice day," and then his Russian equivalent of that, "It is my wish that you enjoy your waking hours." And to us, this is my wish. I know I recognize that subjunctive in the second part of the sentence. It is my wish. I hope that you enjoy.
Желаю.
And for us, that is sinister. Have a nice day is so straightforward and sunshiny and happy. Have a nice day. And you just can't get that out of, it is my wish that you enjoy your waking hours. So then the next example, hey man, is dinner ready? And he translates that, or he renders that into this Russianized English. Has the borscht been prepared for this evening's consumption?
You know, Jon Stewart errs there. Consumption, it's to eat, to consume. Borscht would probably not be served in the evening. And
I didn't know that.
Jon Stewart, borscht would be served at dinner, which is obied, which is early in the afternoon.
Ah,
Lunch.
yes, that's
Lunch.
European too, yeah, lunch.
So, but it's Americans who eat the big meal at the end of the day, and not the Russians, who would likely have something simpler for supper.
Yes, and that is true of my experience in Spain and in France. The main meal of the day is in the middle of the day, and it's dinner. But we only have that. That's only true on Sunday. Here, we have Sunday dinner in the middle of the day, and that tends to be a big meal. So what I wanted to get at here, and I thought that, although I can't make that comparison, quite often the way that Russians speaking English come across. They present themselves, and I mean this in the nicest way. As you know, I cannot communicate in Russian. But there's a difference in the level of formality between have a nice day and hey man, is dinner ready? Both those things are very informal level of language. And part of the humor in this little sketch is the contrast in the level of formality between what he offers in English and the way he imagines it might be in Russian. So here are two more opportunities to see if you could make the Russian interpretation that he offered into something less formal, less daunting. Have a nice day. What can you make of that? Something less formal that doesn't require a subjunctive. And does that speak to you when I say it doesn't require a subjunctive? Do you easily see the subjunctive there? I am guessing that anything in Russian that is going to be introduced by "it is my wish that" requires a subjunctive verb in the subordinate clause. Does that language mean something to you, or is that just linguist jargon? Send you into silence.
It's a Stolbe clause. It's a Stolbe clause.
I think it's too hard for us, the linguistic.
You have
we should study this in university, not on these course, the linguistic points.
you have to indulge us, Elena. We are all pedagogues, and we do complex palatalized consonants and subjunctives just like that. Just like that. That could be the third character on our TV comedy. We would have a pedagogue who constantly analyzes the conversation and the speech of others.
Yes.
And never mind what the meaning is that they're trying to communicate.
Yeah.
It's all about the form. And you can laugh, but I have more trouble laughing about this because when I first started studying languages other than English, and then English as well, this is the way everything was presented. When I studied Spanish in school, they said, write 10 sentences that use the subjunctive and give the rule why it's needed.
Oh my God. When I studied Hebrew, I haven't such problems.
Yes?
Yes. It was, I think, easier than English. Of course, it is in Russian, for sure. But I haven't such problems.
Well, mostly languages, modern languages, are not taught this way now. And I don't know about Russian. My colleagues, I defer to my colleagues. You still have to do something about the noun declensions and so on, adjective declensions. There's even something funny about the verbs. Well,
the names are a bit of an issue too, tied to level of formality. So how do you think Medvedev addresses Vladimir Putin? Does he vlik it or plik it? What name does he use?
would he call him, do you think, would he call him using his patronymic? So he'd say
Vladimir
Vladimir. Yeah.
Vladimir Vladimirovich.
So already in English, he's having to change what he says to Obama because Obama wouldn't understand the form of address with the patronymic. He'd probably say, hey, wait a second, isn't his last name Putin?
So maybe he just will say to Mr. President. Will be
yes,
easier.
or to the president, exactly, because in Russian, the name that they might use to address each other will carry a different form. And you laughed when I said, just call him Vlad.
Yeah.
Vladi, Vova. All of these diminutives, which we can't use in English. We have no markings, really. We have some equivalents, but not as rich as Russian. It's not Dima and Vova, right? It's not how they talk to each other.
Well, actually, President Clinton on Twitter is called Jeff. Billy Jeff.
Billy Jeff?
Yes, his name is William Jefferson Clinton. And when he was on the Colbert Show one night, Colbert signed him up for Twitter. But President Clinton, as a Twitter handle, had already been taken, so they gave him this name, Billy
Jeff.
Billy Jeff. You also want to change the accent, don't you, for the southernness of it?
Oh yeah, Billy Jeff. That is so southern.
Southern.
My car has a name. This 18-year-old car that I drive has a name, and the name of the car is Billy Bob.
Billy Bob?
Billy Bob.
Billy Bob.
It's William Robert.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite a respectable southern name.
Konstantin, I want to ask you a question. So we give names to cars. I have Professor Marston names her car. I have named my cars.
My cars.
Car, automobile.
Uh-huh.
How about a metro train? The engine. Do you name it? You say, "Oh, I got Tanya today. Svetlana. Oh, Horoshenka."
Our train's named Rusich.
Rusich.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. So you named the train.
Old-fashioned Russian.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. That's good.
I like that.
Rusich. Okay.
Okay, sure.
How could you explain that to Professor Marston, Konstantin?
Sorry?
Can you explain that that name to Professor Marston?
I don't know. It's a very, very old name of Russians, Rusichi.
It's from history.
From ancient history, yes.
So it would be name of the people from Rus?
Yes, it was.
People from Rus, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. So now we're back in my time frame.
It's not all trains named so. Only trains on our line, Arbatsk-Pokrovskaya. In Arbatsk-Pokrovskaya, it's ring and at Red line and in Filevskaya line, and in other line there are no names.
No names.
There are numbers.
Numbers. What is the color of your line? What is the color of your line?
Blue, I mean. I
Blue.
don't remember.
Blue?
Blue, yes.
Uh-huh.
The blue line?
Blue line.
This is very important for giving directions to people.
it's very important to
On how to go somewhere when you're giving them direction.
When I was in Moscow, the Red Line was what I used quite a bit because it stopped at Park Kultury, which was the station by where I lived. But the Blue Line goes to Kievskaya, right?
Kievskaya, there is
a station.
3 stations.
On the ring.
Kievskaya.
On the ring.
Mm-hmm.
On the ring, on the our line, and on the Filovsky line.
Uh-huh.
Ah.
There are 3 vestibule. I don't know how it is in English.
Ah.
But it's
or halls.
Oh yes, 3 halls. 3 different halls, but it is one place.
One station.
Yeah, one's a very big
not
station.
one station, but in one place. They stayed in one place.
Mm-hmm.
If you see in a Moscow map.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They
it's
intersect.
only one point.
Пересекают.
Oh yes.
And I think Park Kultury is like that too, because it's on the Red Line and it's also on the ring.
Mm-hmm, yes.
So
in English, пересекающий, I don't know. When you can to reset from one station to another.
Transfer.
Transfer station.
To transfer, right. It's a transfer
Пересадка.
Yeah. It's a transfer station where 2 lines come together.
So the Park Kultury is the transfer station.
Yeah.
I very often use this station when I go to the work, to my work.
When you go to work. And how long does it take you to go from your house to work?
About 1 hour.
That's before rush hour, right? Before rush hour.
It doesn't depend on rush hour or not. In metro we have the same time for rush hour and for all another hour.
Well, this is, of course, I lived in New York City a very long time ago.
But I think that in New York, in underground, the same situation. They don't depend on the rush hour because there are no cars underground.
Yeah.
No traffic.
Yeah, there is no traffic. That is true. But there are so many people to move that they have extra cars during rush hour.
Yes. But in rush hours, there are more trains at the line.
Yes.
And interval between the trains is 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Wow.
Maybe 1 minute 20 seconds.
In my experience, there were delays between stations during rush hour. And I don't know why.
The Moscow Metro is also famous for having these beautiful halls with mosaics, with beautiful paintings. What Konstantin, in your view, is the most beautiful metro station?
Mayakovskaya, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, many people.
Yes,
like
I think that Mayakovskaya. I don't know. This station was presented on Paris exhibition in 30s last century, and they win the architect.
So the architects, yeah.
The architects win a gold prize at this exhibition. It's really very nice station.
I don't think that is true of New York.
But such station, I don't know. It's very expensive to build very nice stations, very beautiful stations, because we need a station in Moscow, and it's very expensive, and there are no enough station for us, for our traffic, for our 20 million people that live in Moscow.
Can you pass me the com, Professor Barson?
I will do my best.
I will put up a picture, Konstantin, of the Mayakovsky station.
So. There.
Ah.
I don't know. I can't find it immediately.
I will put one up there.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, that's stunning. I love that.
It looks like the Sandunovsky baths.
It does.
No. They're very interesting is sailing. Not column, but sailing, because when the lamp, I don't know, plafond.
When the
place where the lamps are, I don't know how it sounds.
We say fixtures usually.
There are very beautiful pictures.
I'm trying to find another photo too.
And very beautiful station, believe me.
Try this one. Well, up where the lights are, those are pictures up there in the ceiling?
Oh, yes, amazing.
No. Do you know that in 1941 the plenum of Central Committee of our party was on this station during the war.
Really? Uh-huh.
The station was closed for passengers, and the delegates sitting here and listening to Stalin.
Actually, in the station.
It's a wonderful hall.
It's beautiful.
So here would be an example of one of the pictures.
Mosaic.
A mosaic.
And with plain, I don't know how it was made. Very beautiful is pictures with airplanes, and I don't remember what else. But not only me, many people think that it is the most beautiful station on Moscow Metro.
would you like to look at the poem? Oh, look at that. Sunflowers. And
hummingbirds.
yes, a hummingbird. Oh. I'm very fond of sunflowers.
I will pass the baton back to you, Professor Marston.
Okay. Let's see if I can. Okay, I'm going to hope. Look at this. Okay, so what you see now is the beginning of the poem that Stephen Colbert wrote. And we need to keep in mind that it was made to be performed, and it was performed before a live audience. So the people who are listening to this poem are not at home. They are in the same space as the other listeners. And what would you say is the main theme of this poem? What's it about? Irene, oh, go ahead. Konstantin, go ahead. Well, Irina, will you say what is the main theme of this?
Well, about these lines, I think it's about safety, maybe, that people all the time is caring if they're safe or not, if they don't remember to close their doors, to lock their cars, that they didn't forget to turn off something.
So, yes, I think you've got it. It's about fear.
Mm-hmm.
The performer, the person who speaks, is playing on that. So, Irina, will you read a little bit, beginning with, did you hear that? No?
Continue?
Yeah, read it.
Did you hear that? No? You're probably going deaf. It's your kids back home cooking up some crystal meth. Did you turn off the oven? Did you set the alarm? They still haven't caught the man with one arm.
Okay,
Actually, this one I didn't understood because I don't know who is the man with one arm.
Yeah. That's a tricky one. Let's come back to that after we've looked at the first couplet, the first two lines.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? No, you're probably going deaf. People who have teenagers at home or older children probably grew up going to rock concerts.
Yeah.
And something we hear in the news these days is how many people go deaf or have hearing loss at a younger age than they used to. And it is said there's damage caused by loud rock concerts. You remember my grandson, the one who wants to be a rock star, says, when you go to a rock concert, you should wear earplugs. Seems kind of counterindicated to me. Okay, so you didn't hear your kids back home because they're probably going deaf. What is that? What's crystal meth?
Drug.
Drugs. Yeah.
Drugs is right. Do you know what meth is short for?
Russian sound amphetamine.
Uh-huh. Methamphetamine.
Right. It's highly addictive.
Mm-hmm.
And you do something with it at home to make it, but that's beyond my experience.
So far, Elena, we have two fears, right? Two fears. And remember, he's reciting this poem at an audience. It's in a large room. So we have two fears. Did you hear that? No, you didn't hear it? You're probably going deaf. What didn't you hear? Your kids, they're back home, and what are they doing back home? They're cooking up some crystal meth. They're making drugs. So we're afraid of being deaf. We're afraid that our kids are making drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And the story continues, okay?
Continue to read.
Well, the story continues. Do this, the second couplet, the second two lines.
Okay. Did you turn off the oven? Did you set the alarm? They still haven't caught the man with one arm.
All right. So we now we're given three more things to worry about, right? Like three. So we were worried about going deaf. We're worried about the kids making meth, and now we have three more things. What are the three more things that we're worried about, that we're concerned about?
About forgetting to turn off something.
Good.
And going out.
Set the alarm. Okay. So the oven or the iron or the water in the bath. Did you leave the water running in the bathtub? You know, have you ever worried about things like that?
I think yes.
Yeah. Did you set the alarm? And if that wasn't enough to worry about, we have to worry about that they haven't caught the man with one arm.
Yes, who this?
So what about this? The man with one arm.
Constantine, do you have any idea about the man with one arm?
No. I thought that it's a kind of one arm gangster.
Gangster. Yeah. Well, that's a good guess. Good guess. Good.
The automat for games.
It's called a slot machine. Slot machine.
Slot machine?
Is a one-armed bandit. Slot machine.
One-armed bandit, yes.
The automat.
But who is the man with one arm? I don't know.
Okay. But you have a good guess. Very good guess. Mm-hmm. Well, let's see. The man with one arm. Who's going to explain this? Somebody of our generation.
It's an old TV show reference.
I was about to say it was before my time, but I can't get away with that, can I?
Well, you might be able to.
It marginally. I don't know this one very well.
There was a doctor in this TV show. There was a doctor whose wife was murdered, and he was convicted of her murder and put in prison. He escaped from prison because he wanted to pursue the real killer, and nobody else believed that there was a real killer, and this was a one-armed man, a man with only one arm. And finally, at the end of the show, it seemed like he pursued that person forever. He found the one-armed man, and he was
exonerated.
Yes, thank you. Exonerated.
Exonerated, vindicated. And this television show was called The Fugitive, and it lasted for several seasons. And it seemed
exonerated. What does it mean, exonerated?
Proved not guilty.
Proved not guilty.
1960 to 1967.
So, and people, all of America watched the show, and people would talk about, are they going to catch the man with one arm, and would the doctor be exonerated? And I remember that people, everybody watched the show, and it was something that we worried about. Would we catch the man with one arm? Would that? And now, it was another fear. It was another concern. But was it a real fear, a real concern, something real to worry about?
There were some children growing up who were threatened that the boogeyman would get them, and instead, and the boogeyman was about the same as the man with one arm. The idea is, okay, you didn't set the alarm, and they haven't caught the man with one arm, you might be vulnerable. And he might come after you in your house because you forgot to set the alarm.
So we continue with our list of things to worry about, things that are real and things that are not real, that nevertheless preoccupy us and kind of consume our energy and our emotions.
So, Konstantin, would you like to read the next two couplets?
Look around at these people. How safe do you feel? I think maybe he skipped a line here accidentally. Your car was in your pocket. Did you remember to lock it? Think reasonably. Odds are no one reasonably. Odds are no one has a pickpocket.
Okay, so we have two problems here that don't have to do with interpreting so much as I have a line here, so we're not going to discuss that part. But the other one is, no one hears a pickpocket. And there's another word that sounds the same as hears. No one hears a pickpocket doesn't really make a lot of sense. We're in a group of people who are listening to this speaker, and that's what we get in the first line of this these four lines. Look around at these people, and so you're back in the context of the room. And so then no one here is a pickpocket, to me, makes a better reading of the text. But he doesn't say here is a pickpocket, but here's. What do you think?
You see the difference? Konstantin is the difference. It's what he should be saying is niktos jest pickpocket.
Sorry, could you repeat?
Niktos jest pickpocket.
No one has a pickpocket. How?
Yeah.
Maybe something has a pickpocket, but he didn't make a sound. Didn't
That's
tell
one,
about it.
Yeah, that's one reading, and it's logic, but the context doesn't support that reading. You know, you're in a group and it says thinking reasonably. No one hears a pickpocket, so why would you be afraid in a crowd? Pickpockets are not usually noisy, so we're talking about your car and your car keys. Remember, that's what we're afraid of. So the context supports the other reading, I think.
No one has a pickpocket. It's the same that pickpockets are not usually noisy.
That's what that would mean, yeah, but that doesn't make sense.
No, you mean that the real meaning of this word that hears, that like you wrote, right?
Right.
That no one hears, никто не карманник.
Никто здесь не pickpocket.
Как здесь? Why здесь?
Здесь.
Yes.
No one here is a pickpocket.
Here is.
So that's a mistake. I'm going to look at it as a mistake.
I think that's a mistake.
But now I also wanted to talk about this expression, odds are. What are the odds?
Pinch.
It's a gambling expression.
Like a gambling expression?
Yeah.
It means chance, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
What are the odds that it's snowing today in Texas? It's summer. Yeah, it's summer. It's Texas. So, what are the odds that it's snowing here today?
Very small.
Very slim. Very small. Not a very big chance. You're exactly right. But what are the odds that you're going to hit a temperature record in Moscow today? I hear there's a heat wave in Moscow, right? Right, Konstantin? It's very hot in Moscow today, right?
Yes, we have a heat wave.
I heard that odds are you guys are going to hit a heat record today, the hottest day in May in Moscow in 130 years. That's what I heard. So the odds are pretty good that you'll have a heat record, right?
And in Des Moines, we are also expecting to break the heat record for this date. We're having one very, very hot day. 2 days ago, I had to cover up my garden because there was a danger of a frost.
But I can't catch what does mean odds.
Chance.
Chance.
Probability. It's a mathematical word.
Yeah, it's a probability, like we're playing cards or throwing dice.
If I have if me see. I have 4 grandchildren, and I have 4 grandchildren, and let's see. I'm trying to think. I'm having trouble coming up with an example here. I have.
What are the odds that one will have blonde hair?
What are the odds that one will have blonde hair? My wife and I both have blonde hair.
Takový šanci, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Carl, when you pack it, did you remember to lock it? I understand it. Thinking reasonably, odds are, the chance is, no one has a pickpocket.
Right.
Odds are means it's very likely.
Thinking reasonably, odds are.
We might also say chances are, right?
Yes.
I'll think about all of it tomorrow.
Okay. If there, Konstantin, if there are 3 horses in a race, if there are 3 horses in a race, what are the chances, named A, B, and C, what are the chances that one of the horses will win?
The chances, I don't know.
What are the chances? 1 in 3. 1 in 3. You have 3 horses in a race. What are the chances that one horse will win? 1 in 3. Or you say the odds are 2 to 1 that my horse will win.
The odds are 2 to 1 that my horse is win.
Odds are odds. The probability.
It's okay,
Maybe
but I can't to understand this.
Konstantin, I wrote in the chat in Russian.
Спасибо.
Yeah.
There you go. Good.
Yeah.
Well, that part isn't as clear to me as the other things we wrote, but oh well.
We have about 5 minutes, Professor Marson.
I would like to talk a little bit about next time, which will be our last class of the semester. We're going to ask you to reflect on what you have learned this semester, and there is a new tool on the website that will allow you to make an audio recording simply. And so you can make a recording. We would ask that you do that. And then, if you wish, you can also write before you come to class next week. And then we will talk about that. What you have learned, what you would like to learn that you didn't, how you expect to continue studying English going forward, and what would you tell another student who might be interested in taking this course again? Those are the kinds of questions. We'll send them to you in writing. And then we're going to talk about them next time. And if you have any thoughts about what your favorite assignment was, or what you found the most difficult, that would also be of interest to us. So it's a taking stock a sort of assessment that we will do together about our experience in America and Americans today this semester. Do you have questions about that?
Yes, I have a question. The next class, it will be the last class, and it will be end of the course, how I understood, right?
Yes, that's just right. We have one more session after today. And of course, this same course will continue in the fall semester. And there may be other ways that you can continue studying English. And so we want to hear about your ideas, how you're going to do it, if you're going to do it, what works for you, how you study things. In general, we will sum up. And the idea to think about the process of learning. That's what we want to do. How,
okay.
What works for you? And what would you like to see more of among the things that we have done?
And about the poem, that the part of which we talked about now, we should translate it for the next class?
We probably will not do very much with it in class. We may, but that's a separate thing, and you may have seen that Professor Shestakov has offered a competition in the...
Yes, I saw about this. I mean that for the class we don't should to do this, to prepare.
No, but I'm sure there is a deadline for submitting your translation. I don't know what that is. I don't remember.
We'll have him send everybody an email.
Yes. So, but in general, if you can begin thinking for our class next week, think about reflecting on your learning process. That's what we hope to do. And Professor Smith, did you have a further comment?
No, just to wish everybody a good week. I'm going to need to run to my next meeting, unfortunately.
I do want to thank you, Konstantin, for your comments about the metro. The next time I come to Moscow, I'm hoping that you will take me to the Metro Museum.
Yes.
Yes. Would you do that?
I'll try.
Okay. Well,
I will come with Professor Lero. You will have two. You will have two tourists to deal with.
Two tourists.
And no, maybe I'll be able to come too.
And Professor Marston too.
And we will go to we will visit every single metro station in Moscow.
Okay.
We'll plan a year. We'll plan. We'll talk to you all next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.